Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We warmly welcome you all for the 11th International Conference on Business and Information 2020. ICBI is an annual conference organized by Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Plenary, Sri Lanka. And today, the conference will take you through the theme of transforming business strategies for economic resilience. The goal of ICBI 2020 is to bring leading academics, researchers, and scholars to exchange and share their knowledge and research results. Unlike previous years, this time the entire conference will be held online. And for the first time in 10 years of proud history, the proceedings of the conference will be hosted on SSRN, which is a Scopus Index open access online preprint community owned by Elsevier. Furthermore, a CEO forum will be held to discuss contemporary issues in business environment. In addition to that, there are many more forums for the researchers, academicians, and practitioners to enhance their research knowledge throughout the day. So I invite you all to make much of joy and memories to be recalled in this conference in years to come. To officially inaugurate the ceremony, we'll join with our alma mater.
Desakitu gosa urumaya suratina siat suwanda vidu kirana bedadena sarasandaki vidulakara udagina kalaniya sarasavi mata kalaniya sarasavi mata Isuru sadalana Dare jeeva ulbadavanno sindena Kalaniya sarasavi mata Kalaniya sarasavi mata Siya desakitu gosa urumaya suratina Siya suwanda vidu kirana bedadena Sarasandaki vidulakara udagina Kalaniya sarasavi mata Kalaniya sarasavi mata Sita suviyat divituru nanaguna Yugayan yugayat dayata tilinatara Karupirivara saha mululova sarasana Kalaniya sarasavi mata Vidu ambare babaleva Siya desakitu gosa urumaya suratina siat suwanda vidu kirana bedadena sarasandaki vidulakara udagina kalaniya sarasavi mata vidu ambare babaleva
Thank you, everyone. Today, the chair of ICBI 2020 is Professor Bandara Vaninayaka. Professor Vaninayaka is an avid scholar in the field of marketing management and holds a doctorate from Thomas Bata University in Czech Republic and an MBA from University of Colombo. He has published a number of research articles in indexed and referred journals in diverse fields belonging to marketing discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, let me cordially invite Professor Bandar Vaninayaka to formally welcome the gathering.
A very good morning to everyone, the distinguished guests, academics, paper presenters, and ladies and gentlemen. As the chair of conference, it gives me immense pleasure to declare the commencement of International Conference on Business and Information 2020. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to welcome all of you to the ICBI 2020, which is one of the leading conference in business management fraternity organized annually by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of California. ICBI was initiated in year 2010, and we have successfully conducted 10 conferences during last 10 years. And today we are unfolding 11th edition of ICBI with the participation of the significant number of national and international researchers. Over the past 10 years, ICBI has created an excellent platform to share the new knowledge, experience, and expertise among academics, scholars, and industry practitioners in business management discipline in all over the world. Some of the key areas of knowledge creation and dissemination of ICBI are the evolution of business management discipline, new business models, solution to current issues, inventions, innovations, and their application in various sectors in order to create the positive impact on business and society at large. As a responsible academic body and a leader in business management education in the country, Faculty of Commerce and Management Study strives in developing actionable and impactful knowledge. Reflecting this thought process and philosophy, ICBI 2020 is organized under the theme of transforming business strategies for economic resilience. Therefore, the research findings, concepts, and the knowledge shared through the conference will be insightful for the management researchers to develop innovative solutions to the business problems in today's dynamic and challenging business environment. To attain said objectives, ICBI 2020 is enriched with some new features. This time we have introduced new track named Social Distancing and Impact on Business and Society, where dialogue will be created through the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. Another key highlight is CEO Forum, which brings together speakers from policymaking section and strategic level managers representing the key industries in Sri Lanka. Under this forum, several CEOs of leading companies will share the strategic initiative they have taken to successfully face the challenges in prevailing business environment. In addition to that, for the first time in the history of ICBI, the proceeding of the conference will be hosted on SSRN, which is a Scoopers indexed open access online preprint community owned by LCBI. Therefore, researchers have an excellent opportunity to share their research finding with large academic community in the world. Therefore, as the chair of the conference, I believe this conference will be prominent academic forum in the knowledge society. With that happy note, as the conference chair of ICBI 2020, let me now welcome our distinguished guests to the inauguration ceremony. First of all, I would like to warmly welcome Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor, University of California, as the chief guest for the event. Madam, we are indeed honored to have you here with us to make the opening remarks. Then I warmly welcome Dr. Narada Fernando, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies to the ICBI 2020. You have always supported us to bring conference up to that level, and your participation to the conference is big encouragement to us. I warmly welcome Professor Noel Scott from the University of Sunshine Coast, Australia, the keynote speaker of ICBI 2020. We are looking forward to your keynote speech, and we consider it as the privilege to have you as the keynote speaker of the event. I would like to welcome Professor N.P. Sunil Chandra, Chairman of Research Council, University of Kelaniya. Your participation is really important to us. Further, I would like to welcome all the deans of other faculties, head of the departments of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies for this event. Your participation today is big strength to the organization team of ICBI 2020. Furthermore, I warmly welcome all the academics, fellow researchers, presenters, registrar and all the administrative staff, librarian, non-academic staff and member of the organization committee who have given their fullest support to make this event success. Unlike previous years, this time the entire conference will be held online, and we have taken all the necessary measures to ensure hassle-free event with smooth execution. Going online created an opportunity to attract more foreign scholars, and I'm sure ICBI 2020 will definitely be a new experience for all of the participants. And I would like to conclude my speech by encouraging and inviting all of you to participate online discussion, forum, and research session organized throughout the day. I wish you everyone a successful and fruitful conference and have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable thoughts. As one of the key faculties in the University of Kelaniya, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies focuses more on strengthening the platform where the knowledge is created. Behind all of these great things, the Dean of the faculty is playing a phenomenal role. He has done an exceptional job as a researcher in the academia in the fields of capital market, stock market, market efficiency, asset pricing, and education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies of University of Kelaniya to address the conference.
Very good morning to all of you. Professor Nilantida Silva, Vice Chancellor, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Professor Noel Scott, keynote speaker of the ICBI 2020. Deans of the faculties, Chairman of the University Research Council, heads of department, professors, academic members, researchers from different countries, librarian, registrar, Bursa, and other administrative members of the University of Kelaniya, academic supportive members, non-academic members, and ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to address you all in this morning in ICBI 2020, organized by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. This time, we came up with the theme of transforming business strategies for economic resilience. In the pandemic, entrepreneurs and industries are reconsidering its recent history and its future directions. Exponential growth in digitization of education, healthcare, entertainment, transport systems, road networks will create new business models with demonetization and dematerialization. So will our companies or business organizations survive from this storm of disruptive innovations? That is one of the major problems we are facing. So are they ready to embrace these opportunities. So with the dematerialization, physical products become digitized and are distributed as bits and bytes. Demonetization will reduce the value of a market segment, especially services, through innovations. With all these challenges, so we are having the same question again. Are we ready to embrace the opportunities? That's why we need to update ourselves every day. Today, we can visualize the readiness of academicians and professionals for these challenges in ICBI 2020 presentations. No grand ideas was ever born in a conference, as we all know, but a lot of irrational ideas have died there. That is the specialty. So I hope ICBI 2020, organized by Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Kelaniya, will definitely provide the stage for our presenters to showcase their valuable ideas. Creating this platform of ICBI 2020 to this level and passion, including doctoral colloquium and CEO forum, and connected with a lot of refereed journals, is not an easy task. As the faculty, we gave that responsibility to a dedicated team led by two great personalities. Once again, it was proved that the hardships always prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destinations. So thank you very much, Professor Bandara Vandinayaka, Mrs. Bimali Vijay and the entire team for organizing this conference into this level with all social distancing regulations. So finally, as the Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka, I wanted to thank all the presenters and participants to be with ICBI for the 11th consecutive time. Hope the day will be fruitful to all of us. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir, we thank you profusely for your valuable thoughts. Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva earned her first degree in medicine and MBBS from the University of Colombo and went on to earn a master's in medical parasitology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in 1999 and a Doctor of Medicine degree specializing in medical parasitology from Colombo University's prestigious Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, the PGIM, in 1994. She has lectured at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya since 1993 and has been the professor of parasitology since 2003. Senior Professor De Silva, a well-accomplished scholar, has over 60 publications in peer-reviewed scientific journals. The main focus of her research has been on soil-transmitted helminth infections, particularly their epidemiology, treatment, and control. Senior Professor De Silva has served in various capacities in WHO working groups and committees over the years. She has been newly appointed to the prestigious position of Vice Chancellor, University of Kelaniya early this year, and has been spearheading the institution towards academic excellence since then. Senior Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor, University of Kelaniya. Madam, this humble invitation is for you to take the screen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Narada Fernando, Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, the conference co-chairs, Professor Bandara Vandinayaka and Dr. Ravi Disanayaka, Professor Noel Scott, our keynote speaker from Australia, deans of the faculties and other distinguished invitees, international and local conference participants, staff and students from the faculty, and other invitees. It is my pleasure to speak a few words at the inauguration of this 11th International Conference on Business and Information. I'm very proud that our Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, which was established just 25 years ago, is now one of the leading providers of higher education in the field of commerce and business management in Sri Lanka. We have an annual intake of about 1,000 students for undergraduate programs offered by the faculty, and an equally large number enrolled for the postgraduate programs and sub-degree level certificate and diploma programs offered again by the same faculty. I'm told that the first conference on business and information was organized by the faculty in 2010 with the aim of focusing on how a business can and should be driven by high quality, timely information. The theme of this year's conference is business transformation in emerging technology landscape. And given that many businesses are reeling from the impact of lockdowns necessitated by this year's COVID-19 pandemic, I think that this focus on transformation and resilience is very timely. Many organizations both in the public and the private sectors have to change the way in which we do business. Because of the need for social distancing, almost always that change has had to involve the greater use of digital technology. In the Sri Lankan context, with the overnight imposition of lockdowns and curfews starting from March this year, I think there is also a great need for agility and ability to respond quickly to changes in the operating environment. However, as somebody from outside of the field of commerce and management, it is my perception that this need is not very well met in Sri Lanka at the moment. And I hope that conferences such as this will help all of the participants to share their knowledge and experiences to do better as we go along. Professor Narada, the Dean, mentioned that this year's new feature is the introduction of a CEO forum with representation from key industries in Sri Lanka and from India. And I'm also told that the conference proceedings will include a doctoral colloquium with more than 30 papers and several parallel tracks for the presentation of more than 90 manuscripts and extended abstracts. I was really glad to learn that the best papers will be available on SSRN and that the papers that are accepted and edited will be indexed on Scopus. I truly congratulate the conference co-chairs, Professor Vaninayaka and Dr. Disanayaka, and the conference secretary and the executive committee on rising to the challenge. It's really been a major challenge to organize a conference like this under very difficult circumstances. I know they have gone to a lot of trouble to ensure that all the presentations and discussions can be followed online by the conference participants. Just this morning, Narada informed me that more than 800 people have registered for the conference, and I can see that right now we have well over 300 participants. I'm sure that all of these participants will benefit in some way from the extensive sharing of knowledge and experience that will take place during the course of today. And I wish everyone a really fruitful, successful day's deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Your words of wisdom have been an encouragement to us. This time is dedicated for the keynote speech by Professor Noel Scott, adjunct professor of Tourism Management in the Sustainable Research Centre, University of Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. Dr. Noel Scott is an adjunct professor of Tourism Management in the Sustainable Research Centre, University of Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. His research interests include the study of tourism experiences, destination management, and marketing. He is a frequent speaker at international academic and industry conferences. He has over 300 academic articles published, including 16 books. He has supervised 23 doctoral students to successful completion of their thesis. He is on the editorial board of 10 journals, a member of the International Association of China Tourism Scholars, and a fellow of the Council for Australian Tourism and Hospitality Education. Prior to starting his academic career in 2001, Dr. Scott worked as a senior manager in a variety of business, including as manager research and strategic services at Tourism and Events Queensland. With a great honor, I would like to invite our keynote speaker of the day, Professor Noel Scott, adjunct professor of tourism management in the Sustainable Research Centre, University of Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia, to grace the event. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. So first of all, thank you very much to the Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor De Silva, for her kind words and for introducing the conference. Dean Fernando, Dr. Fernando, thank you. And Professor, now I hope I pronounced this correctly, Waninayaka. Hopefully I've pronounced that properly. I'm terrible with names, but I do. I've been to Sri Lanka a number of times and I love it there. I wish I was able to join you in person, but today I'm in Brisbane in Australia. So I'll say g'day. I'll see if I can get this on screen now. I have to try and share this. Excuse me. Share screen. And share screen. Okay, so hopefully you can see this screen now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, just wanted to make sure. Good. So I want to talk to you a little bit today. I've got about half an hour. If I rattle on too much, you have to stop me. So please do. But I want to talk a little bit about resilience. So the concept of resilience and how it might flow or transfer into the study or the industry generally, but also in particular the one that I'm interested in, tourism, which is was of growing importance to Sri Lanka and around the world, and hopefully will be an important industry again. So to begin, let's just think about what we mean by resilience. Resilience came from the ecology literature, and this often happens. You'll get a concept in one area which is transferred by analogy into the business literature. Transferred by analogy. An analogy makes a very good starting point, often for the development of theory, but you always have to worry about how much the analogy works versus doesn't work and where the differences may be. So in ecosystem research, the concept of resilience emphasizes that ecosystems are dynamic, that is, not stable, but dynamically stable, perhaps, and that they're always fluctuating in terms of their populations, species, percentages, and so on. Now, if you transfer that idea to business, the concept of resilience has been used in the supply chain literature, and it's used to emphasize that stability is unlikely to last for any length of time, and that perhaps we should be always thinking that the future is not going to be as predictable as we like it. There is perhaps a difference between the ecological literature and the supply chain literature, in that there is a tendency to think, and it makes sense in terms of supply chains where you're producing goods, that the that resilience should return you to your original state. So you absorb a shock and then are able to recover and get back to the original state. Sometimes, however, I'd like to argue that returning to the original state may not be possible. So this may be a difference between the use of the term resilience in the ecological literature and in business. Or I would argue that at the moment there's a difference, whereas in business, perhaps we should be thinking more ecologically. So the idea, I think, at least in tourism, as a global industry, contributes, has been argued to until recently contribute about 10% of global economy. Change is, well, it's continuously evolving. And ever since I started, which is maybe 25, 30 years ago in tourism, there's been continual crises of some type or another. So in tourism, the idea that you're going to return to normality in terms of the products and services you offer, well, social media and online bookings took care of that. In terms of customers, well, the growth of China and radical change in the origin of visitors took care of that. And more recently, the idea that you can easily travel wherever you like. Well, COVID-19 has taken care of that. So there is this idea that tourism as an industry is open and evolving, and a return to normality is not necessarily what's going to happen as a result of a crisis or impact. So the changes that can occur are often negative, but can be positive. So tourism gets negative and positive shocks. And when you get, one of the things I've noticed over the years is that when you get these large shocks, it can be an opportunity to move the tourism industry into a new format of some time. Often you need a bit of a shock to shake things up a bit and get people able or interested in changing. So perhaps you should never waste a crisis. On the left-hand side, you'll see a diagram where you have a system, tourism destination or something, which has got a trend line, a trend in terms of its development. It undergoes shocks periodically. And the idea is perhaps as a result of a shock, you can move it to a more advantageous position of some type. So resilience, I want you to think about, is not necessarily return to the original state, but perhaps return to a new state, which is more how the, well, to an evolving state, which is more how the ecologists think of it. Tourism is, if you want to understand how these things may play out in tourism, you've got to understand a bit of its characteristics as a business or economic form of economic development. So the main reason governments get involved in tourism is as a form of regional economic development. That's the aim that they generally want from it, which can be a bit tricky because tourism is a fragmented industry, geographically diverse, involves lots of different sectors, and naturally organized into discrete destinations. Let's say Gaul, the Trincomalee, Colombo, and so on. These places are centers for the development of tourism, and they have their own actors, businesses, governments, local governments at least, and so on. So, and they will often offer particular different types of tourism offering. City tourism in Colombo versus sun and sand beach tourism on the south coast, perhaps. Another thing that's important about tourism is that the government owns or controls a lot of communal assets. So the government controls national parks, beaches, and other assets, roads, and so on that are so important for tourism as well as the rest of the economy in many ways. Tourism is mainly small business, and those businesses both compete and cooperate at the same time. So they will be fighting to get people from overseas, for example, to Sri Lanka. They'll be fighting against India and China and so on. And but they'll also be competing. So they'll be cooperating to get people from overseas to Sri Lanka, but then they'll be competing to get them to come to their particular business. That sort of process is called co-opetition, and tourism offers a good example of that in practice. So when you have all these diverse diverse businesses, geographically diverse and so on, having to cooperate and compete at the same time, one response, often self-organizing response, is the development of networks of businesses that somehow try and make up for the lack of formal coordination. And those networks are responsible for providing some sort of comprehensive tourism experience, which doesn't just end often at the hotel boundary, but involves attractions, events, and many other things, restaurants and the town and so on, meeting with local people. So you need some sort of cohesion in policy and in planning for tourism, which doesn't necessarily happen by itself, because sometimes governments, they're sort of used to manufacturing, and they're sort of used to agriculture, but dealing with services and especially tourism can be a bit tricky for them. So often you need a network to coordinate business activity, and it's that sort of network that can encourage learning and perhaps lead to competitive advantage for a destination. Now, another thing that you need to know about tourism is that it's consists of, we tend to think of tourism, but in fact, it's really a number of different, what I would call product markets or market sectors, one on top of another. And the way a destination develops over time is that it will start with local people having a day trip, people from surrounding towns generally coming for a short break and maybe an overnight stay. Then you might get normal domestic tourism, a normal holiday destination, and then you'll generally get international if your product is competitive and interesting enough. And each one of these product markets overlays each other, and you can generally see that a destination develops through these various stages over time. Another interesting thing about tourism is, well, up until recently, we've been seeing rapid growth because of the in tourism, because of the economic development by numerous countries, and the graph below shows how travel, or at least air travel, but it's generally travel in general, reacts to changes in or increases in GDP per capita. So if you look on the left-hand side for the bottom graph, you'll see it's a logarithmic scale, 0, 0.0, 0.11, and 10. As GDP per capita increases, trips per capita, the number of air trips increases exponentially to a certain point, and you can distinguish between developing and developed countries where places like Australia aren't going to increase their trips per capita much. We're already pretty high, it'll be slower. whereas the developing countries are growing rapidly. So what that means together is that tourism is a segmented market and should develop, or typically develops, through the domestic market and then the international market. That as a country develops its economy, it grows. It's one of the first things that people want to do is travel. And so that's why tourism has been growing in the future. When international borders are shut off, people still want to travel. And of course, if you're in a country's in lockdown and the government says you can't travel, then that's a problem. But once lockdown finishes, that demand is still there, dependent upon the amount of disposable income people have. So that's a second effect. But in Australia, as a result of COVID, people can't travel interstate or can't travel overseas, which has meant that the domestic market, the Queenslanders in my own state, are traveling in Queensland. So you get this growth of the domestic market for two reasons. Just normally people want to get away, and secondly, they can't travel to other states or other countries because of the government's regulations. Okay, so effective COVID is mixed. Just really quickly, so each one of the product markets that I've talked about, the day tripping, the overnight, normal holiday and international markets, have their own set of suppliers and entrepreneurs who are involved in that market. And each one of those groups has its own competitive behavior, maybe more cooperative, maybe less. And of course, there's a lot of overlap, especially for some large companies. But if you want to swap or encourage one product market over another, let's say you can't have international, so therefore you need to grow the domestic market, or at least promote the domestic market, then you need to think about who the suppliers are, their competitive behavior, how they operate together, what their networks are like, and also think about how the demand side, the customers, are changing their behavior and adapting to new circumstances and offers, and how that information would be diffused around and across those customers. So what we have with COVID is can be conceptualized as an example of the need to develop or promote resilience of the tourism sector by moving or by looking at the changes between product markets, and how you might be able to encourage that through encouraging supplier entrepreneurship, or perhaps demand side adaptation through marketing and new product development. So one of the things that I think is needed in this area is what I would call cooperative destination promotion. So there are a number of different destinations, as I said, in Sri Lanka and in many countries. And often those destinations do not work together. The people in them have no cohesive network and don't cooperate in the areas that they need to and compete in the areas that they should do. And so I think that COVID is an opportunity to develop the resilience of the tourism sector in various destinations by encouraging them to move to promotion collaboratively of the domestic market. And government has a role in doing that. Government has a role in terms of encouraging operators, providing incentives for tourism businesses to work together. And in Australia, there's numerous examples of that. We tending to call brand management, and there's particular techniques you can use to encourage that. From a different perspective, resilience is about change in the organization of the network of tourism businesses in a region. And on the right, you'll see a way of visualizing that. Each one of those dots is a business, and some of them work together. Perhaps a crisis may enable you to develop new organizational connections, relationships, and in fact bring new people into a tourism destination network, perhaps people who hadn't been well connected and involved in any cooperation in the destination in the past. And I won't go into this very much, but there are techniques that you can use, social network analysis and so on, that can measure and help you to visualize and measure where the interactions are occurring within a destination network, and perhaps to visualize where there are disconnects between parts of the different parts of the network. And I have done in the past some studies in this area where you can take a group of tourism businesses and ask them in a fairly easy manner how they might work together, and then group them into sub-networks where there is more or less based on the people and the interactions that occur. This was an example in one tourism destination region, and the region called Southern Downs, the destination called Southern Downs, was actually grouped into, you could see how it's connected into 3 different clusters of businesses, with some organizations, usually government organizations, providing coordination in the center. Similarly, you can look at the Gold Coast, one of the major tourism destinations in Australia. Ask the tourism businesses, government and industry, who they work with, who do you interact with on a daily, weekly or monthly basis. Visualize those connections in terms of a line, and then perhaps see, using analysis techniques, see where the more central and more peripheral organizations are. In this sort of analysis, the organizations that are more central are generally more powerful, and it's very interesting to see how they operate and whether there are distinct groups. So in this study, we found, this is a map, we could group people geographically into people in Brisbane, the black people, the red people were the people on the Gold Coast, and the green people were tourism operators on the hinterland area. And typically you found that those geographic separations translated into groups of businesses who worked together or didn't work together. So geography in tourism can separate businesses, and another way of saying that is perhaps you need to have some interventions to overcome these natural tendencies and to create a more cohesive network. Quickly, what's going to happen in the future? Well, immediately here in Australia, our National Tourism Marketing Organisation, Tourism Australia, is currently focused, it's been instructed by the government to focus on promotion of domestic tourism and market research that we have, limited market research, but still market research has indicated that there is demand for travel, and that whenever a lockdown is lifted, there is a increase in tourism around the country. So that's not to say that some people, especially those in the, who have lost their jobs, often in the tourism sector, are able to travel. Perhaps they can't, but generally there is demand, and that demand can't be expressed overseas. So that's why you're getting quite robust rebounds of tourism in certain regions of Australia, although not everywhere. So finally, a little bit ahead of time, but hopefully this is okay. On the right, you'll see the Chinese character or the Chinese word for crisis. The Chinese word for crisis is written with two characters, problem, and the other character is opportunity. So a crisis involves or provides both a problem and an opportunity. So can we be resilient? Can we see the opportunities and change the way we operate to achieve a better future by doing a couple of things? One is, in the short term, be resilient like an ecosystem, to not seek to move back to exactly the same stable position, but instead to adapt through changing the markets that we are promoting or that are prominent, that is from international to domestic. And then how do we do that? Those sort of things, it's nice to say they will happen through the magic hand of the market, but government has a role in stimulating and encouraging collaboration to make it happen. That can be through organisation of marketing to promote the domestic market, to particular products to the domestic market. Operators will have to change their product to some extent to make it attractive to the domestic market and to communicate those things better. The other thing that you can certainly do in this sort of situation, because in many places there aren't as many people are less busy, so you have time to plan for the future, and perhaps you can start to improve collaboration to make your destination network more effective for the future. So those are some comments. Here are some papers that that might be useful, and I'll certainly provide this presentation to anyone who wants it. I'll provide it to the organisers. So thank you. That's about 25 minutes, but hopefully that was interesting, and I'll hand it back to the moderator. Thank you. Are you there?
So thank you so much for your valuable thoughts, your dedication here in ICBI 2020. And ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to watch the live telecast of today's program, today's conference from SLT Event TV channel number 20. And that's a gentle reminder. Well, it's so encouraging to see that all of you have got together to share this valuable experience and to broaden your horizons with us. And without your support, this event wouldn't be possible. So the time has come to thank you all who worked hard to make this conference a great success. So I would like to invite Mrs. Bimali Vijay Sundara, Senior Lecturer in the Department of Marketing, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Columbia, the Conference Secretary, ICBI 2020, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all of you. The chief guest, Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor of the University, Dr. Narada Fernando, Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Professor WMCB Vani Nayaka, Chair of the Conference, Dr. Ravi Disanayaka, Co-Chair of the Conference, Deans of Faculties, Heads and Directors of the University of California, Professor Noel Scott, the keynote speaker of ICBI 2020, Dr. Said, the resource person for plenary session, eminent speakers and academics, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The International Conference on Business and Information 2020 is organized by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies of University of California for the 11th consecutive year. As mentioned in many speeches before, we are theme as transforming business strategies for economic resilience this year. We are gathered virtually today for the inaugural ceremony of the conference, and we are now about to bring it to a close. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks to express my gratitude to everyone on behalf of the conference committee. First and foremost, I extend our heartiest gratitude to Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Vice Chancellor of the University of California, for gracing this occasion as the chief guest. We are extremely proud of your presence here today, and we feel inspired by your words. I'm quite certain that this conference is going to be a boost in your endeavor to improve our University of California in the research landscape of Sri Lanka. We owe the success of today's event and the eventual success of the conference to the Dr. Narada Fernando, the Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies. Yes, sir. I thank you very much for your guidance and the trust you place on us on organizing this event. Let me further extend a heartiest thank you to all the deans, the directors, and chairmen of University of California for sparing their time to be here with us today. It is a great strength to us. I should extend our gratitude to the Professor Noel Scott, the keynote speaker of ICBI 2020, for the very insightful keynote address. It was a thought-provoking speech with a rich content. Thank you very much for your generosity in sharing the wealth of knowledge you have. Honestly, this conference won't come true today without the incredible support, guidance, enormous faith and wisdom bestowed by the chair of the conference, Professor Bandara Vani Nayaka, since the day we started working to breathe life to it. I do hope that we have delivered up to your standards and beyond. And I would like to thank conference co-chair Dr. Ravi Disanayaka, the support given in numerous ways for planning to execute the conference successfully. Dr. Said, the resource person of plenary session today, and all the speakers and session chairs, including the CEOs, the speakers of the symposia, research scholars and paper presenters, we are looking forward to the wealth of knowledge you are going to share. We greatly appreciate your support, which made this occasion second to none of its standards and color. I would also like to express our sincerest thanks to all the head of the departments of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, academic staff members, and academic support staff for their continuous support from the day one, from reviewing the papers to active participation in the event today. I shouldn't forget the efforts of the non-academic staff members too. They were supportive in numerous ways. Without their untiring effort, this event wouldn't have been a success. Well, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel started rolling about a year ago. It requires precise planning and a bird's eye for details. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated members who need their job and who were result-oriented. My dear colleagues in the organizing committee, a big thank to you all for the all support rendered. Last but not least, distinguished guests, colleagues, well-wishers, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining us today in this ceremony. Your support and encouragement will certainly take us to a more exciting future. Although it is a time to bring down the curtains of the inauguration ceremony, it is the beginning of a day of excellent research, collaboration, sharing and networking in a virtual environment. We hope that this conference will be another giant step in fostering a rich research culture in the university. And I do hope that you all will enjoy the conference very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Please join with the national anthem to conclude the remarks in inauguration session of the main event of ICBI 2020. Thank you all. The CEO forum will start around 10:15 a.m. and you can join with it for have valuable industry thoughts on transforming business strategies for economic resilience. Therefore, you can have more insights from the industry experts in Sri Lanka throughout this CEO forum. Therefore, keep in touch. We will be start the CEO forum around 10:15 a.m.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CEO Forum of ICBI 2020. The CEO Forum is one of the innovative additions to the 11th International Conference on Business and Information organized by the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. This is a timely dialogue on contemporary business environment in line with the theme of strategy intent versus impact in economic outbreaks. The CEO Forum is featured by the speakers from policymaking sections and strategic level managers representing key industries in Sri Lanka. Now, let me introduce the speakers. The first speaker is Mr. Dilip Mudadeniya, who is the Vice President Marketing and Events at Cinnamon Hotels and Resorts. He was the former CEO of Cinnamon Life Mall at John Keel's Group. And the next speaker is Mr. Tilanka Dizaisa, Managing Director of Convenience Food Lanka PLC of CBL Group. We also have Mr. Mahinda Sarnapala, who is the CEO of Kalani Cables PLC. The fourth speaker is Mr. Tushan Amarasuriya, the CEO of Single Finance Lanka PLC. Mr. Shiham Marikar, who is the CEO of National Chamber of Exporters, is also another speaker. Last but not least, we would like to specially welcome the discussant of this forum, Mr. Ashish Chandra, the CEO of Bharti Airtel Lanka. He will be summarizing all the key points discussed in the forum by elaborating the way forward strategic thinking for corporate leaders. And this forum will be moderated by Dr. Ravi Disanayake, Conference Co-Chair of ICBI 2020 and Head of the Department of Marketing Management, University of Kelaniya. Over to you, sir.
Hi, good morning everyone again. ICBI 2020, we have specially featured this time CEO Forum. By looking at and we all investigating what's going on in the world, economically, socially, even politically, a lot of changes been made due to this COVID-19 pandemic situation. So we thought to bring this new idea into ICBI 2020 with a featured event called CEO Forum. So once again, welcome you all. I'm Ravi Disanayake. I'm moderating this session with the renowned speakers representing different sectors of the country, including foreign presence. So Sri Lanka is being always blessed by different industries and sectors, particularly if I say tourism sector is one of the vital sectors in Sri Lankan economy. If you look at the statistic, let me say something very briefly, is 30% of contribution to GDP come from this travel and tourism sector, which indicates how big it is for Sri Lankan economy. Today, we got the presence of Dilip Mudadeniya. Once again, welcoming you, Dilip. And I love to start with this dialogue with this gentleman because of your hands-on experience and the knowledge you inculcated during this your practical exposures and the corporate learning within the sector of tourism and hospital management. Dilip, Sri Lanka, yes, once and even right now, being endorsed as one of the top destinations in the world for tourism. However, this economic outbreak, not for our country, but for the world, it has created immense impact where a lot of negatives are going around, but still the learning opportunities are there. So Dilip, can you start with your valuable talk, indicating and educating this forum locally and internationally? There are presence and the participant for this forum today, how this COVID-19 economic outbreak has impacted directly and indirectly to the tourism sector of Sri Lanka. Yes, Dilip.
Thank you, and very good morning to you, to all of you, and great appreciation for the University of Kelaniya and Dr. Ravi and the team for organizing something like this, which might be useful for the viewers who have joined us. So just to, I mean, the impact on this has been discussed in detail and even in the past. So as I mentioned several times in many forums, the difference in this time COVID for tourism in terms of the impact is the entire supply chain of the travel and tourism, the global travel and tourism industry has been impacted. For a year, generally, you have about 1.2 billion people travel around the world. And out of that is 70% actually more or less travel around European context, European continent. And then in the number of people who are coming to South Asia is around, but the market share is around 4% of the 1.2 billion. And the balance 20-25% is the Far East Asian. So the entire network has been completely affected. And we, if you remember 2018 as a benchmark, 2.2 million arrivals were received for the first time in the history of Sri Lanka. Compared to many countries, the numbers are not good, but 2.2 million for 65,000 square kilometers is a significant number. And this number was going up. And then, of course, we had the East attack in 2019, in March, April period. And as a result, the numbers went down, but pick up pretty fast. And by October, we were back in the market and the numbers were coming up. And we actually got healthy growth in the January, February, and March until the close down lockdown came into play. So there is the currently in terms of tourism revenue, I think estimated numbers according to the central bank and the tourism authority was around $4 billion. Is it's a simple calculation of $185 per day per person into 10 days into 2.2 million tourists plus other ancillary revenue came to about $4 billion. And this number basically was going up as well with the increase of tourists. So that number has drastically come down at least by 70 or 80%. Because we only had about first 3 months of arrivals in this country this year, and the balance were actually almost had to be erased out. And we will most probably end up in about 500 or 600,000 arrivals as opposed to plan was around almost 2.3, 2.4 million. And that's a gap that is created from foreign exchange earnings. In terms of employment, this industry has given about 200,000. So that's, direct and indirect. And those are actually all the indirect businesses have completely affected. And I would estimate that the number of people who have lost income as a result of this 200,000 is easily to be half of that, because half of it actually directly, vendors, street vendors, and people, homestay people, and various other people who depend on the industry. So this is basically foreign exchange drop, impact of in terms of salaries, etc. And then also finally the supply chain network within country. If you look at farmers, fishermen, vegetable suppliers, other contractors that were there. So all of them have actually have got affected as a result. And I think that impact is also has to be contributed. Since we have not yet implemented the satellite accounting in tourism, it may be difficult to analyze the total impact, but it's very much there. So that's basically what we are at the current stage. But it may not be the case in moving forward, but a country which depends on tourism heavily, I think this is a severe blow, and it is time for us to now use this period and rethink our strategies moving forward, especially when we design what we call the purpose-driven tourism to the country.
Fantastic. We got good eye-opening to the statistic and the way how it goes around the country. And this sector is very much connected to different value chains and the participants of the business model. Yes, Dilip, let me ask this question again. Now, we all talk about, as per the theme even we do have to this time, we talk about strategic intent, one side where we want to be. So normally organizations are planning to be, but in this resilience is very much challenging, but still we have to deal with those. What Sri Lanka should do, as you think, within another 2-3 years of the time, to be very competitive in the regional tourism sector? So what Sri Lanka should do? What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, so first thing is, we should understand we are an island. Island is 65,000 square kilometers. So if you compare with the island of similar sizes, Bali, even Maldives is actually smaller, Madagascar, Mauritius, even Hawaii. Now the island of this size, which gets the highest number of arrivals, is basically, I would say, Bali and Hawaii. Hawaii gets about 8 to 9 million tourists for a year. So in that context, what is the capacity of Sri Lanka that we can accommodate in terms of tourism? To reach 10 million is not going to take much time. So we need to work on what we call what is the carrying capacity of the country. That's very important to work out. There is a certain limit that can be accommodated at the airport. There's a certain number of tourists that we can accommodate in Sigiriya. There's a certain number of tourists that can be accommodated in national parks and so on, even in the beach. We saw the chaos that actually caused some time back. So much of jeeps were there to see one half of a leopard in Yala. And people were spending about 8 hours, 9 hours in Sigiriya queuing up, paying $30, not being able to go up. So we need to work out this carrying capacity. And then we had to look at the impact that's going to generate in terms of environment, in terms of the people who are living in the country, etc., from tourism, and to understand what is this value versus price-driven combination that we are going to establish. So this is what we call value-based tourism. Purpose of tourism in any country is actually to exchange, earning of foreign exchange earning. That's the number one. And that needs to be established. There's no point we bring sometimes tourists who do not actually contribute economically, and then who come sometimes spend less than $5 a day. Sometimes you go to places like Alda, you will see that they are in a small shack just on a roof and paying less than $5 a day. And but the infrastructure that they use in the country is going to be the same because our infrastructure, as you know, is subsidized. The road network, telephone network, and if you're going to subsidize from that, there is no point of that tourist comes in. The mixed tourism is important, that there are various levels, but there has to be something called value-based tourism. So we need to understand, are we going to get 8 million tourists who's spending $50 a day, or we are going to get 4 million tourists who's going to pay $150 a day? That's the equation we should look at it. And to understand and drive the policy towards that. That doesn't mean that we will take out all the guest houses, etc. No, that's not the answer. We need to work sure that we basically bring the quality-based tourism. That doesn't mean that we will bring only tourists who are going to spend $300 accommodation. No, people like to pay for experiences. They might stay in $50 accommodation, but they might go and spend $300 on experience, which basically they will never get it. Or we marketed an experience of something authentic experience, which costs and which charge something. I'll give an example. When I was in Hawaii, there was a very, very difficult program. You had to wait about 6 months to get into that queue. They call it ghost tours. You start at 11 o'clock in the night, finish at 2 o'clock in the night. They take you to some of the cemeteries and then some of the haunted houses. They call it ghost tour and then charge $100 for that. And that's because they don't have anything. But Sri Lanka has too many things to bring it, and that has to be brought in. And charging from accommodation and putting $300 is not practical. But the ancillary services have to come in so that they will not mind paying for such large number. And for example, the experience that they got from going from Patipol to Ella, that train journey is world famous. And then 300 or 400 rupees. So we give some comfort to them, we give some necessary support to them, and then make sure that we have enough experiences to come in. So it's very important that we do at this time carrying capacity study. We do a satellite accounting also to understand the impact of tourism. We do a study maybe on impact of SMEs to the tourism from SMEs. And then we look at how do we develop the certain facilities and the experiences to the tourism so that we can move towards value-based tourism in the country. Today, only 4% of the tourists visits Anuradhapura. Sigiriya, we only have about 28 to 29% of total tourists. Pinnavala is the place that they go most, around 30-35% of the tourists. National parks, they have only maximum about 8 to 9% of tourists. These are 2018 figures visit. So most of the people who are coming to the country are not really visiting those attractions. Maybe it's expensive currently or overpriced. There's a debate on that as well. So they don't come in. So, but nevertheless, they are more coming to see sun and sand, and then cheap destinations or cheap places, and then going back. So we need to change this model, rethink this model, and be ready. And you create a competitive advantage for Sri Lanka and bring out certain authentic experiences so that Sri Lanka, there'll be like a set of people who will come in order to experience that and spend the right kind of revenue in the country so that our economy will have a direct benefit of this industry rather than subsidizing some of the tourists that who are coming here.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very, very, factful and giving a lesson for how Sri Lanka should be driven as volume-based to value-based tourism. Thank you very much, Dini. We once again catch you with another fantastic dialogue we have to come with you. And Sri Lanka is being island, of course, and the COVID-19 situation has created a lot of challenges, but challenges always give learning. So today we got the presence of Mr. Tilankari Soisa, CEO of a leading food manufacturing company in Sri Lanka. Tilankar. What do you think about the challenges what you have to face as an industry, as a company, when these all what you call these things are going around, including social distancing, shops are closed, curfews, a lot of measures being taken by the government. But as a company who operates in the industry of food and beverage, how do you face these challenges and what are the measures you have taken so far? Yes, Sri Lanka? I think we have a kind of a technical challenge, I guess. Sri Lanka? Yes, please. Maybe Sri Lanka, I think our team will rectify this issue again. Sri Lanka, I will get back to you quickly. Anyway, so we talk about different industries. Tourism, we had a good idea sharing, and then definitely I will get this Sri Lanka into the board with the quick rectification of the technical matters. And today we got the presence of Mr. Mahinda Saranapala, CEO of Plenary Cables PLC. Mr. Mahinda is a renowned character in Sri Lanka talking about this innovation, technology, and the quality measurements going hand-to-hand strategy. Mr. Mahinda Saranapala, what do you think about the contribution of industrial sector in Sri Lanka and of course the challenges it has faced so far due to this COVID-19 economic outbreak? So how do you evaluate this situation and what are the measures you take?
First of all, let me thank Dr. Ravi for inviting us for this very valuable event, and I'm happy to participate. Basically, if I may tell you a little bit of Plenary Cables, is a 51-year-old company, and we have been serving the island and a few exports for 51 years. So basically, we had a vision, mission, and a strategy. Our vision is to become the nation's leading electrical solutions provider. And the mission is very wide and deliver optimum value to our stakeholders through product development. That's one of our key strategies, advanced technology, improved productivity, while creating an open culture within the organization to harness creativity and innovation. So with this, I will touch upon it later. And we have some 5 core values: respect, integrity, quality, family, and learning. So with that, we have been able to take this company forward, very dynamic. Also, I must mention that I have a very dynamic team, blessed with the 9 MBAs, 1 doctorate from the Calgary University. Then I have about 2 or 3 chartered mechanical engineers, chartered accountants, plus the key here is, I think we went into productivity areas, 5S Kaizen Lean, operational excellence. At that point, I had 9 return trainees from Japan, AOTS, where I am also one of the return trainees. So we were on the same wavelength. And we took this industry forward with these innovations, product development. We kept on adding new products. We have a very small R&D division, and then we have been able to create an impact in Sri Lanka. In 9 years, we have been able to sell 59 billion worth of products to the local and export markets. So to have that kind of growth is not easy. It's a very, very difficult task. But of course, I must say that everyone from top to bottom supported in this drive, and we have a team for people where we say 520 associates, 520 hearts, but 1 beat. So that's the team we use to get everyone involved, employee engagement, supporting us at every move. And a little bit about the COVID situation, how we handled the COVID situation. At the beginning, there was fear psychosis. Everyone was scared. COVID-19 was new to all of us. But we kept on using technology, and through Zoom meetings, we spoke to the senior managers every day. and then convince them that the first opportunity we should get in and start work and start delivering. So with that, we made sure that we got permits, we manufactured, fabricated, sanitizing boot sprays, face masks, temperature gauges, all that. With that, we were able to come out, and then we gave a corporate turnaround plan, and that was also successful in June, July, August. And but it's tough at the moment, but we are very confident that we will overcome all that.
Yeah, Mr. Mahinda, now a lot of dialogues and arguments going on when the economic pressure comes that way for a corporate. Can we still hang on with this strategy, goes with the quality and innovation as it is when the community is being pressured by a lot of economic outbreaks and the limitations?
Yes, yes. The challenges are more complex now, because if you look at how the CEOs and MDs of companies have to take these challenges, it's a powerful mix of forces outside, this external. We have employee activism, we have enhanced media transparency, government gridlock, inconsistent policies, right? Global issues as COVID-19 pandemic, rising inequality, and climate change. So in addition to running your companies, delivering the numbers, growing the business, keeping the people together, it is a very, very tough task today for the CEOs because of these complex issues that we have to work around. But if you give strong leadership with your team, I'm very confident that we can overcome all these issues, but it'll take a little time. But I'm happy that we were able to bring all our employees back and give them work and keep them happy, because they are indirect. We have 520 associates and indirect about 1,500. So we made sure that their life is secured and safeguarded.
Obviously, I think leadership has to take a wonderful role in organization to create the confidence within the people, very important. And then your focus rather being panic on the strategy and the outcome. Obviously, Mr. Sarupala, we will get you back to the forum again with a new thinking. I think, are we okay to go with Tilanka? Tilanka, can you speak for a time to check it whether it works with you? Hi, Tilanka, can we get your voice to the forum? Okay, we'll see. That's also a strategy. We have to go with that option. And today we got the presence of Mr. Tushan Amarasuriya, one of the young and quick learner in the financial sector of the country. He's the CEO of Single Finance Company. And in looking at overall contribution for the service sector to Sri Lankan GDP, the numbers say it's like 57 to 58% of contribution to GDP come from service sector, where within that, the financial sector plays a significant role. But the government has taken some measures to make this money circulation in the economy. And, they have make it down the rates like 9%, 10%, 8%, somewhere there. And with that, they thought about to make community engagement with a lot of transaction where the business models get re-energizing. However, Tushan, what do you think about this challenging time? As a finance company, what are the sustainability challenges or the growth challenges you are currently facing as a financial sector company? Yes, Tushan?
Good morning, Dr. Ravi, and good morning to all of you. Can I be heard?
Yes, Tushan, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this forum. To speak a little bit about the company I work for. We are a mid-sized finance company, a fully owned or a 79% owned subsidiary of Singer, the world famous sewing machine company, and which has a heritage of over 140 years. Singer Finance has been in business for over 16 years, and we have a staff strength of close to 700 members with a branch network of 36 plus. So to answer your question, yes, Sri Lanka is mainly a service-driven economy, and a lot depends on the financial sector of the company to support all these services. since the fallback from the April attacks, the finance sector had a lot of issues back to back, because as one of the speakers spoke earlier, the 30% of the economy is dependent, or the GDP is dependent on the tourism sector. And even the finance sector felt the after effects of the negative impact to the tourism sector, which has a lot of direct and indirect contribution towards all sectors of the country. So when the pandemic set in March, it was all chaos. We never expected a sudden lockdown. And as the theme of today's conference goes, strategy, intent versus impact, which says the meaning of that theme is, I suppose, how strategy formulated is driven down to the operational level and executed. There's always a gap between strategy and the execution of the strategy. And this has become, this pandemic and the unexpected events has made it worse, I would say, because there's so much of uncertainty and we cannot plan for the long term. Things are changing almost on a daily basis. Operational difficulties are being faced by all. So it is very difficult to plan in the long term. So what we as a company and the board, as well as the senior management decided was, in the long term, we are very confident that the pandemic will end soon with the vaccine being found. It will not last forever. So 2 years and beyond, we would strategize as normal. Things would be normal, and we would strategize where we want to be beyond 21 April. The financial year begins in April, and we would say, okay, things are normal, and we would strategize as things would be normal. But this financial year, we will not plan for long. We will take each day by how it comes, and we plan in the very short term and see how best we can address the situation. So in 2017 or 2018, research has found out that about 35% of Sri Lankan adults borrowed money, and out of that, about 48% borrowed from the informal sector. The informal sector means you borrow from your family, you borrow from money lenders, who can also be termed as loan sharks, who charge a very high rate, or you simply pawn your jewelry from the unorganized sector. So only 52% we see that there is financial inclusion in the country. So that's a very, very low number, probably compared to the developed world, compared to Europe. It's a very low number. So my sector, the sector that I represent, we contribute to financial inclusion, where the first-time borrower would generally come to us for their financial needs, and not necessarily to a bank. So we play a crucial role there, where we bring in the first-time borrower or the SME sector. We help them with their first loan, and or the if you take the female card and the females of the country who would want to start a small business by lending their or keeping their jewelry as collateral, we provide services to them in a very convenient way, where they could come in and borrow their first loan from us. So what we saw during this situation was that most of the loans were for consumption basis. If you read the media articles that were there in recent times, a lot of customers unfortunately pawned their jewelry for consumption purposes. And now we must see how best they will be able to come out of this and redeem their jewelry. So there is a huge challenge there. And we as a sector did give them a lot of time to redeem their jewelry before we decided to auction them. So there remains a challenge in that sector. It's huge. The numbers say it's about 600 billion rupees borrowed through bonding of the articles. And then number two, it's as a country to come out of this situation. As you mentioned, Dr. Ravi, the interest rates have been dropped. We need to see non-consumption based borrowing, where people will borrow for purposes of establishing a business or capital formation. So we still don't see that happening in our sector. We still see it's consumption based or subprime loans where people will borrow to settle their existing liabilities. So that is where the danger lies in the short term, and we need to see how best we can come out of this. To be fair, by the government in yesterday's budget, day before the budget, they have come out with a lot of relief measures for agriculture, pharmaceutical, renewable energy, recycling of construction material, etc. And also they have encouraged companies to list in the stock market with a lot of reliefs given, tax reliefs given for 3 years, which would result in more capital formation. So those are encouraging measures taken, and the lowering or the monetary easing that we saw in the past has helped the economy to survive this period. And I would commend the government for doing that. But now we need to, as I said, we need to re-strategize continuously and do the best possible to come out of this situation.
Okay, well, I think we got a lot of insights of how the financial sector operates, and of course, the way you have done the responsiveness for the industry. And Tushan, I need to get some clarification from your end. Maybe you can talk within the sector, say, what the financial sector organization, specifically as your company, the level like middle level financial sector companies, do expect from the government or make this sector a sustainable one. Because if the finance sector is not sustainable, the economic development is a huge question mark. What do you think, what sort of measurements or the policies the government should take to support and make the sustainability a possible one for the financial sector, Tushan?
Already there are plans to introduce mergers in our sector. There are 42 plus finance companies operating, and even in the national budget, the government has given tax reliefs for companies who are willing to acquire smaller companies. So I think that is a very good step forward. At the same time, it would be good for the government to make note of the fact that certain small finance companies also need to exist, because when you limit the number of organizations to X number of large companies, there is a danger of those companies not willing to lend to the small, the SME sector, the first-time borrowers that I mentioned about. So a certain amount of small, well-managed finance companies will have to remain in order to cater to those customers. For example, microfinancing. There are only very few organizations in the formal sector involved in microfinancing, which is a very important area. And if we see a natural death of those companies, then again, those first-time borrowers will go to the informal sector. So when the government makes the policy stance, execute them, it is important to take note of these facts as well. But yes, on a holistic view, a merger in the non-bank financial sector is important. The consolidation process is important because, as you know, we have seen certain shocks occurring in the near past. About 10 years ago, there were issues in the financial sector, and the measured level of mergers and acquisitions would aid the sector to be stable in the long term, whilst taking note of the fact that some of the small companies will have to remain intact in order to serve the customers that I spoke to you about.
Okay, thank you, Tushan. Thank you very much for your contribution with a lot of insights for the policy making perspective, even for the practice perspective as well. So what gets measured gets managed. This is what the famous strategic thought we have seen. And today we got the presence of Mr. Siam Marikar, one of the renowned personalities to export sector of Sri Lanka. He's been engaging in a lot of projects and the policy making activities as well. Shiham, we love to get your voice with a lot of insights on export sector of Sri Lanka in future. And Shiham, are we fully diversified as a country for the economic perspective of the export income? So what are the challenges we do have right now? Yes, Shiham?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Ravi, for inviting me to this very important and prestigious event. I represent the National Chamber of Exporters. We have around 650 members who are either exporting a product or a service. Just like my good friend Dilip Mudadenia mentioned, just like tourism, even exports makes a very important and a vital contribution towards the growth of the Sri Lankan economy. And we being a small country, we depend a lot on the foreign revenue coming through exports. And then with the unfortunate COVID impact, of course, exporters are feeling the negative impact in a very big way. Now, when you talk about the export sector, the exporters are facing a double shock. Internally here in Sri Lanka, they are facing a lot of issues due to the restrictions, due to the curfews. And of course, we know there have been delays at the ports, moving of shipments. But these are not complaints from our side. I mean, first of all, we have to commend all the necessary precautions taken in terms of safeguarding the people. That should be the first priority of everybody. But in the meantime, we have to continue with the economy because we cannot go through a fully lockdown as some may be talking about, because economy has to go through, and there are many factors connected to that. Now, since March and April, when the initial impact came, of course, everything came to a halt. We never experienced something like that before. Now, keeping in mind Sri Lankan exporters, we are a resilient bunch because we are a set of people who went through a 35-year-old war. We had the tsunami, then of course the recent Easter attacks, but still the exporters somehow managed to export and bring in the foreign currency. But this time, like I said, it's a double shock. Even if we here in Sri Lanka recover fully, until the international markets open, there is nothing we can do. Having said that, we all know that more than 200 countries around the world are affected, negatively impacted. So most of them are buying either product or service from Sri Lanka. So we are depending a lot that those markets also recover, similar to us, because only Sri Lanka recovering will not help us solve the problem. Having said that, if you look at the export figures, during 2019, the total exports of Sri Lanka stood at about 16.5 billion US dollars. And of course, our biggest markets were the USA and the EU, where almost around 30% of our exports were to those regions. In 2020, the target for total exports was set at 18.5 billion. But after the incident in March, the targets were revived by the Export Development Board, and now the target is at 13.5 billion. Which is a very challenging target, but still achievable. If you look at the recent, since March, March and April were really down, but then onwards, it was really something, to see that if you look at months like July, August, and September, exports came up to almost 1 billion US dollars, which means that, Sri Lankan exporters have been resilient. And you did ask us a question about diversification. Yes, so I think Sri Lankan exporters diversified. They got to know what are the new needs, and they catered to that. So this is a good sign. When we see exports at 1 billion happening during the last 4-5 months, I think that is something really good. And I think even though we are seeing curfew restrictions and quarantine restrictions in certain cities, exporters are allowed to function properly. Of course, they have to meet with all the health and safety requirements, but still the government has understood the importance of the export enterprises, because they can bring in the required foreign currency. So that's a good move, and I think we need to commend the export community for taking up this challenge even at these difficult times and somehow managing to export their products. Of course, initially, when this whole thing came into place, there were a lot of issues the exporters have to go through. I mean, even as a company or as an individual person working in an export enterprise, there were a lot of talks about, salary cuts, staff retrenchment. These are highly sensitive issues, and people went through a very tough time during March, April, May, June. What we noticed among our members when we did our survey, that the companies who had reserves, of course, they somehow managed to keep their workers and they somehow paid their wages. But then again, there were some companies, and there were many companies actually, where their orders had just got cancelled. Some of these orders, after they imported the raw material, done the production and ready to be shipped, just over an email, these orders were cancelled. So these companies faced huge financial problems. Of course, some of these companies had to decide whether they have to maintain the company or just shut down the company. So what many of them did was they discussed with their workers. They came to understanding, because this was not an isolated situation for a particular company or sector, country, but it is for the whole world. So understanding, I think, between the employer and the employee, there was very good discussions happening, and people accepted the fact, and they knew that they had to go through this, and everybody worked out their survival plans. And like I said, during the last few months, we have seen exports happening. But of course, if you compare with last year, it has not been, there's been a decline. Moving forward, I think it will be positive. Now, the good thing about the export community is that we notice that they are positive. Many of them feel that, of course, things are not going to be normal again for the next 12 or 18 months, but at least they have this in their mind. What they are thinking is that things will be towards the betterment. So having a positive mind is also very, very important. I'm sure many of you all will agree. You cannot let anything break you down. These are challenging times, and we need to somehow convince ourselves and be positive. Now we are hearing about vaccines that are going to come in. So these are positive news, and I think exporters will be ready and they'll be geared to somehow face these challenges. And then when the time comes, go back and maybe increase their exports.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think let me interrupt for a time. And I thought, Shyam, to connect for my next clarification. Export as a career or profession, is it well established in our country? And as a country, how far we are being integrated as a strategy for export development? What is your comment, Shyam?
Yes, no, the very good question, Ravi. I think this is an area where we as a chamber, we are looking at very, very seriously. We had launched some programs. We have actually tied up with various other organizations where we are imparting knowledge, professional courses, subjects related to trade and especially on exports. Now, Sri Lanka, we must remember at this particular time, even a couple of years ago, but now especially the government is also focusing a lot of emphasis are made on exports. And this is a good opportunity even for young graduates who are coming out of universities. Think of exports as a career in the future. So now you see, now there is a lot of emphasis given on agriculture. It doesn't mean this is not just for the farming community. When you say agriculture, we are talking about that product coming out of the farms, processing those products, value addition. It's all a big role, and it can end up in exports. So I think we need to introduce, even at school levels, there should be a subject related to exports. I'm sure there are subjects related to trade in general. Why not focus on exports? Get the young people, A-level students or maybe O-level students, get it to their mind, the importance of exports and what are the opportunities available. Even at universities, maybe a specialized course related to trade. Because when you talk about exports, it is not as easy as such. There are a lot of things you need to learn, it's even starting from very simple things like negotiating skills. what kind of production. I mean, we are talking about packaging here. We are talking about branding, pricing. I mean, here we are competing with the international market. So if the universities can come on board, put together a course, maybe additional course to whatever degrees, business management degrees you all have, that is fine. Those are all very, very essential in today's modern world. But to have a course related to exports, I think would do good, not only for that individual, we will be doing a good service, valuable service to the, we will have more exporters. If you look at the past, the number of exporters in Sri Lanka have not grown. It is the same people we see around. So it is, I think, a duty for universities and other institutes dealing in education to sort of create this opportunity where students can be exposed more to learn about exports, where we can talk to them about what are the opportunities available, and there are a lot of opportunities available.
Okay, great. I think there you are. We also got a new thinking on the responsibility for national universities as well. Shyam, thank you very much. You gave us future driven policy makers and how we should look at export as a career as well. And we wish Sri Lankan export-oriented companies, organization will move into integrated format rather competitive format in future. I think, Tilanka, we don't want to miss your voice again. Tilanka, are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, very good. Welcome back, Tilanka, again. Yes, as I asked earlier, Sri Lankan fast food industry and the food and beverage industry and the retail sector, all these three sectors are very much challenged due to this COVID-19 economic outbreak. As a leading company, what things you got to go with new thinking and how it did impact the organization survival or a growth perspective? Tilanka, over to you.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. And good morning, my dear panelists. And thank you very much, Dr. Ravi and the University of California for inviting me for this prestigious CEOs Forum. Very sorry for that hiccup, but I think we have fixed that and we will go forward. Yes, as one of the leading FMCG companies in Sri Lanka, that is the CBL group, and I'm actually handling a subsidiary called Convenience Foods, where we manufacture a range of products and we do the sales and marketing. So if I take the context of the COVID, the issues which we had to face, I think even most of the other FMCG manufacturing, marketing and sales companies also would have faced. So many challenges like the supply chain. So if I first elaborate on the supply chain, due to the COVID issues, we and most of the companies had issues of getting our ordered raw materials to do the manufacturing on time. Then also our supplies, even the local suppliers who were affected due to the COVID, certain areas were locked down. So those were real challenges which we had to mitigate. So some of the action we took in restoring our supply chain. So we had to be very agile and take very proactive action very quickly. So we have to what we did was we got some storage, like 3PL storage facilities immediately organized, because we have to get more buffer stocks in order to continue our production. Also, another issue regarding the supply. So we had some few supplies for certain products. So what we did, immediately our team got, search for new suppliers. So that was a real task where we had to maintain our quality and the specifications and find new suppliers for variety of our raw materials. So these were the challenges and which we overcame. And also another challenge due to the COVID was the distribution. Most of the factories and distribution, like our main stores near the factory. So as a mitigation, we found other distribution stores in different areas where we could distribute our products through those stores, and where the distributors also had a closer access. So these were some of the challenges we mitigated in our supply chain. Then number two, the consumer reachability. So when we say the consumer in the FMCG, we have the primary consumer, that is our retail shops and the wholesale shops. So that was a challenge in reaching the retail and the wholesaler. Then how to reach our end consumer. So these were the challenges which we had to face, and how we mitigated as a company. We were the first, like, then I had to talk about the HR practices also, how to motivate the field sales force. They were under tremendous pressure everywhere, lockdowns were taking place. So with all the health and health guidelines given by the government, we managed to convince our sales force, and we were one of the first companies to reach the retail trade. So that actually, since most of the companies were not doing distribution during the lockdown period, it really helped us to build the confidence from our retailers, because they were also losing business because they were not getting enough produce from the other company. So that was one of the strategies. We went first, and also what we did was some simple strategies, like the health and regulation, those guidelines we gave all the primary consumers, and also some posters were put in our shops, right? Where when the consumers come, they were reminded constantly that you have to have the social distancing, using the face mask and all, etc., etc. Another thing what we did, we marked the 1 meter distance in foot masks. Our sales people not only did the selling, but we went further and did that type of activities, which the trust from the retailers we got. And I think that type of engagement on a long-term basis has really helped our company. Other marketing communication alternatives. So we had to change. We were traditionally doing like TV advertising, paper advertising. So that also we had to really, as a team, we had to re-look at, and we had to go in for more social media. Not only just social media, how to engage with our consumer. So that was very important, because a brand, now we have a brand called Summer Posha, where that is being consumed. It's a nutritious product consumed by the children and prepared by the mother. So during the lockdown period, most of the children were at homes, and the parents were also at home. So we had a lot of innovative engagements around the brand. So that type of activities we had to strategize newly and cater to that market. Then the other thing, the cost efficiencies. So cost efficiencies all around. So for this, again, during the lockdown period, the people were not coming to work, and we could not get our normal production output done. So once again, how we got around the people, and with good HR practices, talked the people on a daily basis, had simple, activities with them, spoke to their families. And we, as a company and as a group, we didn't do any pay cuts. The normal pays were given, all the bonuses, increments were given. Actually, that really helped us to get the people rally around, and even the output, not even the normal output, we managed to get more output from the people, because they knew that the company was looking after them, and they have to do that extra bit. So because of that, we managed to reduce certain costs, and also certain SKUs which were more profitable was produced in our supply chain, in the production lines, to mitigate the changeover times. So by that, we managed to reduce our wastage in our production lines. So these were some of the activities we did to mitigate this unprecedented COVID issue.
Thank you very much. Very, very insightful. I think it shows a lesson for a lot of practitioners how to focus on strategy and do the adjustment to the value chain process. fantastic ideas during the Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. So, Dilip, I think we can get you back. Maybe I can get your valuable thought for another 1 or 2 minutes. In Sri Lankan tourism sector, way forward, how we should position Sri Lanka as a brand, as you very correctly said in the first forum, in next future 10. Yes, Dilip?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, we need to survive this period, and we have to ensure that in some way or the other, some of these, the great products that we have, actually, they don't die, and there has to be some hotels and people, etc., who can survive during this period, so that, when the good times comes in, we are ready to serve. Unfortunately, the recovery seems to be longer than we expected. We need to see the lot will depend on the impact of the proposed the vaccination. And if that comes into play, you will have a burst coming in terms of travel. But I would say that the real increase in the numbers and the resumption of travel would most probably should be targeted towards 2021 end or the last quarter. Having that in mind, in terms of positioning, we always had a very compelling positioning for Sri Lanka. We need to make sure that, creatively we express that all the time. I think Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority is actually making a lot of promotion bureau is making their plans for the launch, global launch, and on the context of Sri Lanka is an island. The diversity of the island and the compactness in a small time, we can see so many things, and the authenticity. So we call it Asia's authentic, compact, diverse island. And we have to creatively decode this to ensure that we have all the details, and all details are properly explained to the prospective traveler. So that's what the intended positioning of the destination. Then we need to be ready for it and start working with all the details, not to miss the opportunity that's going to come in. So we believe the travels will bounce back very, very strongly once the world is actually, we have enabling environment for people to travel, when there's travel confidence is restored among the most potential travelers to the country.
Okay, thank you very much, Dilip. I think it gave us a lot of thinking again. Sri Lanka, I hate how we should plan as a destination brand equity for the rest of the world. And today we got the presence of Mr. Ashish Chandra. He is yet to step to Sri Lanka as the new CEO to Airtel Sri Lanka company. And as looking at his background and the experiences, what he has calculated during the telecom industry and the global corporates, I invited him to be the discussant of the forum today. So Ashish, while welcoming you again, and can you tell us something about the regional experiences, not only Sri Lanka, India, around, how countries and the corporates did manage this situation or did take the measures to go with or respond to the COVID-19 situation? Yes, over to you, Ashish.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Ravi, for inviting me to this forum, and warm good morning to all the co-panelists, and a warm good morning to all the audience here. It's my pleasure to be here and talking to you guys. In fact, I was hearing in last 10 minutes of last half an hour what different panelists were talking about. And frankly speaking, if I really look at my experience of South Asia and across the world, what people are doing around the new COVID situation, the things are similar to what everybody talked about. So the way I look at it is this COVID situation is an unprecedented situation that human race is facing. And at least this last two generation hasn't seen anything of this sort in past 50 years. Now, every challenge, I always believe, also brings in the opportunity. And we need to keep ourselves pretty positively disposed and look at what are the positives that things are bringing up for us. Now, when I look at the COVID situation, there are two major changes which COVID situation has brought in. And I think most of the companies around, and what I heard even the co-panelists talking about, are taking advantage or are dealing with these things. So one is the large change in the external factors which are outside the company, which are changing. And one of the biggest changes happening is the consumer behavior, how the consumer used to behave and how the consumer demands are changing. So I heard Tushan saying that now the consumers are coming for different kind of borrowings, which was very different from what it used to be. I heard Tilakan saying that now the different kind of marketing is to be done because the consumer needs are changing. And I think that's happening all across the world. So most of the things that I think now the company is looking around is to go digital. because in the COVID situation, and what I jokingly tell everybody, that this has pushed the entire world population to take a crash course on digital technology, because now everybody is now connected through this digital technology. And frankly speaking, 2 years before, we couldn't have thought of this kind of a forum when all of us are being connected on a Zoom platform and talking to the audience all across the world, which is very much possible now. So in last 6 to 8 months, a lot of people have experienced their first time digital interactions, whether it is the first digital purchase that they have done, or it's the first digital class that they have attended, or it's the first digital video conferencing that they have done, and so on and so forth. Now, this is one trend which is going to last for long. A lot of other changes will bounce back. A lot of the changes that we had been pushed into are temporary changes, and they will come back to normal as soon as probably the vaccine is out, or the business is going to become as usual. But one change which will continue for long is going to be the digital transformation which the world has seen. And I think whether it is the purchases, or it is the customer interaction, or where my co-panelists talked about saying communicating to the consumers, or suppliers, or to your vendors and other stuff, is going to change completely. And more and more companies nowadays across the region are trying to make their processes going digital. Okay, so that helps two things. One is from a customer interaction perspective, and second is running their business under these kind of circumstances. So that's one thing I think what companies are focusing. Another thing that companies are focusing is also to educate customer to become digital, because most of the companies nowadays are having apps. Most of the companies are now using social media platforms. Most of the companies are using internet to communicate to their customers. So it is also the responsibilities of the company to educate their customer to become digital, to use their services. And that's second thing that people are doing. So this is from an external perspective. What are the external changes? Now there are a lot of internal changes which are also happening. And one biggest change which is happening is work from home. So entire remote working as a scenario has emerged in last 6 months in a big way. Till about a year back, maximum workforce which used to work from home or flexible used to be about less than 5%, or probably in a single digit kind of a platform. Now in different part of the region, it ranges, and from industry to industry, like an IT industry, 70% people are working from home currently. Probably and then when you move to an industry which is much more like a healthcare and other stuff, this would be probably 15 to 20%. So the range is from 15-20% to 70%. Now, how to make your working efficient when people are not physically sitting in front of you or not physically interacting with each other itself is a big challenge. And a lot of companies are now focusing, one, on providing infrastructure to their people so that they can work efficiently from homes or remote working. Second is fine-tuning their systems, processes, so that people can interact digitally or remotely and can work on the processes. And last but not the least, a very important factor is investing in their people to train them to work from home, because it needs a very different kind of a skill sets. And I heard some of my co-panelists talking about, like Tilakan talked about saying to keep the sales force motivated in this kind of a scenario, or to keep their people motivated. A lot of people talked about that they didn't fire people at the time when the things were going tough. So all these are the challenges that most of the companies are facing in a current kind of scenarios, and I'm looking at those.
Okay, fantastic. Ashish Chandra, once again, I need your thoughts. Maybe that's our take-home lesson out of the CEO Forum ICBI 2020 organized by the University of California. As per your experience, maybe it's a bit of a psychological driven dialogue. What the best rather advice, or maybe your thinking on corporate leaders in this wonderful challenging time, even though it looks like so much of negatives going around. So because of that, I need you to give some ideas on, Ashish, what the lesson our corporate leaders should take out of this COVID-19 outbreak, how they should focus. Are they being panicked, or are they to be more in optimistic in this situation? Yes.
So Ravi, I think a very pertinent question in the current kind of a scenario, and I keep getting this question in a lot of forums that I go to, and I always believe in a theory which says that in any kind of a situation there are two things which are in your control and things which are not in your control. So first of all, you need to identify what are the things which are not in your control, and let's not fret about those things, because you can't change the COVID situation. Okay. The only things that you can change is what within your control. So first thing that everybody needs to do is to focus only on the things which is in our control. And how can then we make the difference in the things which we can control? That's one very important thing. And as I said initially, that in a COVID situation or in any adverse situation, there are always negatives and there are always positives. So we should focus on what are the new things. Like I was giving an example that one big positive that COVID has brought to all of us is digitizing the entire economy or digitizing the entire thing. How can we take advantages of this? Now, I think a lot of co-panelists talked about it, and I would like to summarize all those things that what are the leaders should be looking at. One thing that everybody should focus is how the consumer needs are changing. And I think a lot of my co-panelists talked about it, where we should keep a keen eye on what are the demand change that consumer are, how do we communicate to the customer, how is that changing, how the purchase behavior of consumer are changing, and do we need to change our business model to suit to their requirement. Like Shyam talked about, saying the exporters change depending upon the needs of what the new needs of consumers are emerging, and they started focusing on saying that how can we change the things that we export these days. So we need to be really agile and understand, focused on the consumer needs, and change our processes, systems, products, communication strategy based on the new need of the customer. That's the first thing I think all of us as business leaders should do. Second thing that we need to do is somehow or other, because I fanatically believe this, that the world is going digital. So how can we digitize most of the processes that we have? That will help us keep in pace with the changing world. So our interaction with the customer, our internal processes, our value chain across how we run the business, how can we digitize that? How can we fast forward that digital journey that we are on? I think is another focus that we should be looking at. Then I think one important thing is in current kind of a scenario is a very tight control over your cost, because the revenue is something which is impacted by the current businesses, like depending upon what kind of industry you are. Luckily, I happen to be from telecom industry, which is not as impacted on the revenue side because that becomes a core need for the consumer. But then the industries like probably the tourism industry, the hotel industry, hospitality industry, completely impacted because there's no tourism coming. So the revenue lines are really impacted. And if you really need to sustain in these kind of environment for long term, you really need to cut down your cost. And not exactly cutting down, but probably optimize your cost to bring it to the minimum so that you can keep your nose above the water if the situation elongates and then run for longish time. And last but not the least, the advice that I would give is, and I again picked it up from a lot of co-panelists talking about it, keeping your people motivated. Very important, because end of the day, the companies are nothing but the collection of people, all of us. So it is very important to keep the people motivated, keep them positive, and keep empowering them to come out with new ideas how to handle these situations. So I think it is a collective wisdom of the company which will take us through this COVID situation. So these are some of the points, Ravi, which came to my mind, and I really wish everybody a very positive year to come now.
Thank you very much. I think it's all in all the best speakers today. They gave us a lot of insight for the future learners and even for the practitioners to think twice, or maybe more than that, the way how this intent into impact. I think I love to add something. Now the IO there, it's intelligence. Today, our CEO forum was featured with very valuable talkers, speakers, starting from Mr. Shyam Marika, Mr. Mahinda Saranapala, Mr. Tilanka de Soisa, Mr. Dilip Mudadenia, and finally we got Mr. Ashish Chandra at the discussion, along with Mr. Tushan Amarasuri as another speaker. And we have come to the end of our CEO forum. It was like more than the set of talks. It was really a learning episode for many of the students, locally and internationally, and many of the corporate sector participants, leaders, and particularly for the academia. And of course, the other stakeholders of this conference to think twice how this strategy intent and how it does make the impact. And today we gathered something, another IO there, that's called intelligence. So there you are, ICBI 2020 CEO Forum. I guess it has made wonderful impact to today's learners. And I wish you to have a wonderful session ahead. And University of California Sri Lanka is always taking challenges, taking new things in, and we are ready for the change. That's the role of the university should be, I guess. So thank you very much once again, all the well-wishers around ICBI conference and the CEO forum, and wish you nice time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the
Thank you
best
very
with the
much.
rest of your program. Yes.
Thank you. All the best.
All the best.
Yes, thank you everyone. And thank you very much, Dr. Ravi Dissanayake, our forum moderator, for fine-tuning the forum discussion and taking the best out of our distinguished resource personnel, the corporate sector's top-notch chief executive officers. And we are immensely thankful for their time and commitment as well. We would now like to turn to the plenary session of the day. Dr. Saeed Pahlawan Sharif is an associate professor attached to the Faculty of Business and Law in Taylor's University, Malaysia, and is currently serving as the head of research of the faculty. Having obtained his bachelor's degree in the field of electrical engineering from the Amir Kabir University of Technology in Tehran, Iran, Dr. Saeed has turned to the discipline of business administration and has obtained his MBA from the Taylor's University, Malaysia, before ultimately completing his doctoral qualification from the same university with a specialization of business and finance. In recent years, Dr. Saeed has focused his research on methodological investigations and applications of psychometrics and statistical modeling in social sciences. He has published more than 50 peer-reviewed articles in prestigious ISI and Scopus journals with a total impact factor of 54.262. Dr. Saeed has also nearly 500 citations under his name and is well recognized among fellow scholars. He expects to focus his future research agenda on healthcare financing and patients' financial behavior. Dr. Saeed Pahlawan Sharif, this humble invitation is for you to deliver the plenary speech of ICBI 2020.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I just joined, so I can share my slides, right? Am I allowed to?
Yes, you are allowed, sir.
So now you should see my slides. Hold on. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here and for the beautiful introduction. I just noticed that I need to update my CV, but anyway, I've changed my field of study. Okay. So I know that this is the last session before the launch. So I need to give the time to make sure that I will finish on time. Okay. So the topic for my today's webinar is on the topic is the first 4 minutes. The first 4 minutes. And yep, my name is Saeed from Taylor's University. So as I'm from Taylor's University, I need to do some marketing job too. So I will summarize it. Taylor's University, based on QS ranking, is #1 in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. And I, as you mentioned, I did my PhD in Taylor's University. My very good friend, Dr. Ravi, also, he did his PhD in Taylor's University. And for 2021, there are 20 Scheme C scholarship available. So if you know anyone who may be interested in business, in the field of business, please let me know. So, yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to talk too much about myself, but anyway, because this is related to today's seminar, yeah, I'm head of research and I'm PhD program director in Faculty of Business and Law. So today's webinar, it should be half an hour. But this is summary of a comprehensive course that we are offering in series Center for Industrial Revolution and Innovation. So those who are interested, please contact me. To your university, I think I can offer it for free. I mean, for free, you can join this comprehensive course. But anyway, so this is a 30 minutes. It's a summary of that comprehensive course on the topic that I want to tell you about in a few minutes. But I'm the editor-in-chief for Asia Pacific Journal of Business Administration. It's indexed in ESCI and Scopus and ABDC, and I'm the editor of 2 more journals, and I'm on the editorial board of a few journals that I've mentioned some of them here. But today I want to share my experience of being the editor-in-chief in Asia Pacific Journal of Business Administration, which is hosted by Emerald. So why the topic for today's webinar is the first 4 minutes. I got the idea from this book published in 1972. Its name is Contact the First 4 Minutes, right? What is this book about? I just copy paste the description of the book here. According to the publisher, in 4 minutes, you will know if the person you are talking to is someone you are interested in. So it only takes about 4 minutes to decide whether you like this person or you do not like him or her. Don't worry today, I don't want to share my experience of dating my girlfriends and meeting my wife, but this can be the subject for, this can be the topic for another webinar, but it's not in the scope of today's session, but it's totally related, because today I want to share with you how not be rejected by this. This means the topic is about common reasons for this rejected. I want to share some secrets with you. This is very good for junior researchers and PhD students. So I want to share some, I would say, secrets, right? Some of them are really secrets with you about the reasons that your paper gets rejected in the first 4 minutes. This is true, yeah. I'm not exaggerating. Sometimes in less than 4 minutes, and this is called desk rejection. So, first, let me tell you about the review process. So when you prepare a paper, maybe it's from your PhD or maybe your master's work, or it's a research that you have been conducting over the past 4 years, 5 years. Now you have prepared a paper, you submit it to a journal. Then I have simplified it here. So then editor-in-chief needs to do some sort of screening, needs to do some sort of quick assessment to see whether the paper has the potential or not, right? And this is my job in this journal. Yesterday I captured the screen from the portal of my journal in Emerald, and here you can see I have 107 papers on my desk. I need to do, so already 107 submitted, let's say last week, and now I need to do the initial assessment as the editor-in-chief. So what should I do now? I should check the papers to see whether they should be sent to the associate editors, and then associate editors may send them for review. So when the papers pass the editor-in-chief's assessment, then it will be sent to associate editors, and then the associate editors may send the paper to at least 2 or 3, usually around 5 reviewers, and some may review and return the paper, and at the end their decision is the paper may be accepted. Rarely, I haven't seen any in my journal because usually there are some comments. Again, another, just sharing something with you. If your paper just got accepted is a bit weird, right? Then you may get minor, major, or maybe rejected. So why this stage is very important? I mean, editor-in-chief's assessment or the initial assessment, why is very important? I mean, this, I want to focus on desktop rejection. The reason is I just did a quick search and I found out that on average, journals that are in Elsevier, Emerald, those famous publishers, on average, they reject 30 to 50% of the papers they receive in this stage. So you submit the papers and on average, 30 to 50% is the chance the paper will be rejected without being sent for review. So you don't even receive any comment, right? In my journal, last year, what was around 80%. So 80% of papers are rejected in the first 4 minutes. So this is very important. And this is more important when you know that, when you want to submit a paper, you need to follow the format, spend time to find a good journal. And this is really time consuming. Sometimes you have to cut some parts of the paper. So sometimes it takes a few days to prepare the paper for the next submission. I personally had a paper was published in 2019. It was rejected 14 times. Can you believe it? 14 times. So I submitted it to 15 journals. It was accepted in a good journal at the end, but you see, so if it takes just a few days, and we have other commitments too, so I cannot just sit there and submit. So it may take 1 or 2 years if you want to, if you don't, if you just get rejected 15 times, right, for one paper. And then it may be sent for review and again rejected, right? So it's very important that we make sure that our paper won't be rejected in the first stage, which is called desk rejection, right? So I want to share some secrets with you, hopefully following the guidelines that I will share with you to make sure that you pass this stage. Actually, I always tell my colleagues, we need to pass the initial screening. If it's sent for review, we have a high chance. In my journal, if you pass the initial screening, I would say, I haven't checked the portal, but I would say maybe 50% is the chance the paper to be accepted, right? Or get comments, get comments to be hopefully later accepted. So this is I would say, is the first important big barrier, the editor-in-chief assessment. Or in some journals, the editor pass it to associate editors to make this decision, right? So why we reject many papers in the initial screening? The reason is because we have limited capacity. For my journal in Emerald, the one that I'm talking about, we can accept maximum for 2021 around less than 30 papers. It's already, we have a plan, budget. So 30 papers is the max we can accept, right? How many papers we receive? I don't know, maybe 1,000, a few thousand, a few hundred. So I have to reject at the many of them, right? So, and if I want, let's look at this picture, 100 papers are on my desk, right? And this week I have to clean my desk. So 100 papers, if I want to send them for review, this means I need around 300 to 500 reviewers. And I don't have. How many associate editors do I have? How many reviewers do I have? Or do I know through my network or friends of friends? So it's impossible, right? So in the first stage, I will reject as many as I can, but I just check to find strong evidence that this paper is not suitable and doesn't meet the criteria that we have, and I reject it immediately. And this is good for the authors too. Why? Because we won't waste their time. So they will know that they know that they need to find another journal. So I want to share with you some secrets that will help you to pass this stage, hopefully. Because as I said, it may take just some of them a few seconds, some of them a few minutes, on average 4 minutes based on my experience. So how to pass this 4 minutes barrier? Number one, journal format. So you need to make sure that you are following the journal format. So read the author's guidelines. Some of my colleagues, friends, they just submit. So they work like a machine, right? They have hired an RA. The RA's job is just to submit. So you need to read the author's guideline. This is not just a random text on the journal website. We need to read it, make sure that the paper is following the format. So what do I mean by format? Just read the author's guideline. But I just give you some examples. For example, in my journal, if you check the latest papers published, we require papers to have discussion section. In some journals, they may not need. There are some journals, especially in the some fields like economics, or they don't have even discussion section. But for my journal, I need. Or sometimes the author, I mean the person who submits, they don't include, they miss the title, they don't put the abstract, they don't put some parts, figures, tables, so the paper will be rejected, right? And sometimes the referencing style is random. I mean, each of them, the first page is APA, the second page is horror, or even it's very weird. Even I haven't seen such a referencing style. So for some journals, it's very strict. You need to follow their instruction. For some of them, they give you freedom. They say, okay, just be consistent. In this case, my suggestion, use one of these referencing management systems like EndNote, I mean software packages, EndNote or Mendeley. This is very important. Today, I rejected around 20, 30 before I joined this session. And some of them were just because of the format. The journals were not, the papers were not prepared following the format of my journal. I just give you one example. Look at these two tables. Both of them shows correlation. So both of them are correlation, shows correlations between the variables. So which table do you prefer? You may say, what's the difference? I have seen this. Some of my PhD students, they say, oh, my idea is brilliant. I have been working on this idea for the past 3 years. I have collected 70,000 samples, blah, blah, blah. This is very, I can win a Nobel Prize for it. And you rejected my paper just because of the tables. Hello, I have limited resources. When I check in the first 4 minutes, when I see you don't know, when I see that you don't know how to prepare the table, then the assumption is if you don't know how to prepare a table, this means most probably you don't know how to do research. I know many of you hate me now, but anyway, this is the reality. And I'm not alone. Actually, many other editors, if you talk, yeah, if you talk to your supervisors, they may be editors or they may have the experience. They agree. So, for example, yeah, you see the difference. This is the second one, the one here, is a table I copy-paste from one of my papers already accepted. This is just one of the tables I saw, let's say, in one of the papers that was rejected. So why this has been rejected? Because it's copy-paste from SPSS output. Do not copy-paste the tables from SPSS output and put in the paper, in the manuscript, right? It will be rejected. Why? Again, we don't have much time to go into details. But anyway, just quickly, let's see what are the differences. One of them, you see there is no line here. There's no vertical line here in the good table, right? But here, all lines are there, right? And there are repeated dates. For example, here, the relationship between two variables have been reported twice. So 171, 171. So this part of the table and these four are the same. So why you are reporting twice, right? Or why sample size have been reported 1,000,000 times here, you know? So you need to summarize. So we don't want many tables. Too many tables is not a good idea. Put the reduced number of tables and put as much as you can in one table, right? For example, here in the table I prepared, I put some descriptive statistics and the correlation, right? And the caption, all must be there, right? So you should show what is the meaning of these asterisk or these signs here, and how you measure gender. These are important. So you see there's a caption. Anyway, so I'm just telling you, you know, by format, even some simple things. Because again, the assumption is if you don't know how to prepare a table, perhaps you don't know how to do research, right? Perhaps. It doesn't mean it's true. Yeah, I know many of us are very good researchers, very good research ideas, but sometimes we think, oh, this is not important. My job is higher level of thinking. These are no. You at the end you need to publish your paper, and this is the way to do it, right? And now I want to share a secret with you. I'm not sure whether you have seen this before or not. I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to share this with you or not. But anyway, my friend Dr. Ravi invited me, and this is a gift to everyone in this session. What is the gift? I captured the screen of the portal. I mean the Scholar One portal, the system that Emerald, Elsevier, these journals, they use for manuscript management, submission management. So what is this? Their system, the submission system is not just something to submit the papers. there is a very smart algorithm behind it. So they use some AI, algorithms, and those algorithms are super smart. What I mean? Of course, they identify plagiarism and self-plagiarism. You cannot copy paste something from your previous paper. Indeed, one paragraph from my previous paper, I copy paste it here in my new paper. No, it's not accepted. Not only about plagiarism. For example, the authors have submitted several papers in a day. The system will tell the editor. And, oh, let me tell you something. The system will do some risk assessment based on your location, based on the person who is submitting, based on the author's names, based on your email address, based on your institution, many other factors. And the risk assessment, the results of the risk assessment will be some labels on the paper. For example, here, I copy paste this from Emerald. So from Scholar One. Anyway, so medium or high or low risk, right? So when I see high risk, then I check carefully, and most papers will be rejected when they are labeled as high risk. Why? Because, as I said, we don't have time to review all papers, right? And usually those are problematic. So, what are the problems that system may identify? For example, as I said, the authors may have submitted several papers a day. It's a bit weird, right? How a researcher may submit, let's say, 5-10 papers in a day. So it may mean the person is there just submitting FYP paper, final year projects paper, undergrad projects, right? Maybe he's the head of research just submitting papers, right? So it's a bit weird. Or the paper is under review with another journal. So the system will tell us, right? So don't submit the same paper to 2 journals. This is, again, I captured the screen from the system. This is something only editor-in-chief can see. For example, you see, I rejected the paper today. This is the message. The paper was assessed as high risk, and you can see. Submitting author, the person, let's say Said, 2 submissions in this journal by different authors, okay. 36 submissions outside. This means recently, the computer used to submit this paper, submitted 38 papers from the same computer recently, 2 of them to my journals, 36 of them to other journals. Why? How? What's going on, right? So then you check the paper, and usually these papers, you find something very interesting and very strong evidence to reject. So anyway, I don't want to tell you all about this. This may take 1 hour, the reasons that may be assessed as high risk, but just some examples. Then, read the aims and scope of the journal carefully. Some journals, they don't accept, let's say, secondary data. They don't accept qualitative. I know some journals, they don't accept PLS methods, right? If it's PLS, they reject immediately, right? So while you are submitting your PLS paper to this journal, some papers do not accept review papers, right? So read the aims and scope carefully. Check the latest paper, maybe the past 2 years papers published in this journal to see what's the scope, what papers are published in this journal, and get ideas. You may use the journal website or Google Scholar that I will share with you later. Or use journal finders. Just write in the Google Emerald journal finder, for example, Elsevier journal finders. And then they ask you to copy paste your abstract keywords and title. They will suggest some of their journals to you. Actually, we have a workshop training on how to choose a journal, how to find and choose a journal. If you are interested, let me know. And here is the example for Google Scholar. I put, for example, my journal name here. I use advanced search of Google Scholar, right? And return articles published in this journal, then click, it will give you all papers published in the journal. Then I limit the search to the past 2 years and check the titles to see whether my paper is a good fit or not. Language. Yeah, I understand English is not our first language, but this is your responsibility as the author to make sure there's no spelling, no grammatical, and how to do. Yeah, of course, there are paid services, but you can ask your friends to check your paper. Sometimes they see something that you haven't seen, and they are very simple. You can use English checking software packages like those that I have listed here. Some of them, they have free version too. For example, my students, some of them, they use Ginger. It's used, I checked last year, there was a free version too for students, I think. Or use Google Doc, MS Word. So I myself, when I write a paper, I copy paste it in Google Word or Google Cloud, the Google Doc. Many things that you never have, you have not seen will be highlighted. You see here. And then you find them and you can correct them. Do this. This is very important. Many papers are rejected for their English writing. And you see here, sometimes we don't see some errors, some mistakes. And here I just found one. You see? Did you see this mistake? So you may miss these mistakes, spelling mistake in your paper too. So use these software packages, or Google is totally free, Google Doc, and it's very smart. It's very smart. Your research topic maybe is too narrow. I have given an example here. Service quality and previous experience as a moderator in determining tourist satisfaction with rural tourism destinations in the west area of Colombo district, Sri Lanka, a partial listed PLS approach. So when you want to publish this paper, you should think, okay, who are the audience later? Are they interested to know what's going on in Colombo district? You should generalize your findings, right? I understand maybe you have collected your data from Colombo, but maybe you're from your university students, but you are limiting the scope too much, right? You're providing too much information in the title and the paper may be rejected. Follow the past papers, check the journal, how they chose the title. Don't be too creative if you are a junior researcher. As I said in the beginning, my talk is for junior researchers. So follow their approach, how they chose the topic. Do the same, right? If they mention in that journal that you want to submit, if there are papers that mention Colombo district, Sri Lanka, you do the same. But if not, don't do it. Or the topic does not have, it's not really important. I have many good examples of papers that have been rejected for this, right? So what is important is you need to highlight your contribution, practical contribution, theoretical contribution. For some journals, it's just practical contribution. I mean, practical contribution is more important, like Harvard Business Review. For some journals, theoretical contribution is more important. For some, both, right? For example, for my journal, both of them should be highlighted. So what do we mean by theoretical contribution? Here, I just have shown you three most common theoretical contributions. There are other ways too, but these are the three most common methods. So one is, suppose this is the theory that you want to use, the relationship between these three variables. One method is to confirm or replicate these three, the relationship between these two, or the theory. So you use the same theory model and you just confirm it, verified in another context. In this case, it's called replication. For replication, you need to justify the context. Why studying these variables or this theory in this context is important. You cannot say because Sri Lanka is unique, because no study has been conducted in Sri Lanka. Okay, so what? Why we need one more study? There are thousands of studies in other countries. Now you want to do one more study in Sri Lanka. So why? And then you would say, oh, because Sri Lanka is different. Sri Lanka people are very beautiful, very nice. They are very kind. The weather is very beautiful. I mean, the nature is very beautiful. The weather is good. You need to explain from the lens of your topic why you believe using the past studies findings cannot answer your research questions. You should explain this. So in the introduction, you need to highlight, mention, this study contributes to the literature in three ways, 1, 2, 3. Further explain, sometimes you add mediation or moderation to your model. This is about quantitative works, right? I'm not talking about qualitative works. Extension, integration. Sometimes you extend the theory, integrate two more theories, right? Two, three theories. These are examples of theoretical contribution in quantitative, hypothetical deductive studies. The most common ways, I mean, there are other ways too, but research objective and hypothesis must be, as you can see here, stated clearly. So the last paragraph in the introduction, we need to see the objective. For example, you see, to investigate, the aim of this study is to investigate, blah, 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 is to examine, blah, blah, blah. Exactly like this, right? So if I don't see the objective there, the paper may be rejected. If I don't see the hypothesis clearly, H1, there is a relationship between X and Y, should be there if it's a quantitative hypothetical deductive studies. in your literature review. If there is no recently published paper, sometimes the papers that I received, the latest publication is 2015. So what happened in the past 5 years, right? Or sometimes too many outdated citations, or no theory for hypothetical deductive studies. And let me share a secret. It's good to cite, I have seen this in many good top journals, cite some of the papers published in the journals that you are targeting, right? And also avoid citing papers published in very low quality journals, or those that are not indexed, or maybe blacklisted journals, right? Not too many, should not good. And methodological, sometimes the sample size is too small. If their sample size is 50 something and you want to generalize it to the whole East Asia, this is not really good. Data analysis, if you can use a higher level, for example, if you can use SEM and then you use regression analysis, not good. Or if you can use panel, but you go for a cross-sectional study, not good. So it should be the best data analysis that you can use, the most advanced data analysis that you can, and most suitable for your study, right? And the last for the paper, discussion. Do not use statistics in the discussion part. The statistics for the results. So in the discussion, it's just discussion. And in the discussion, sometimes there is no citation. In the discussion, you should link your findings to the literature. Today, I rejected 2-3 papers because in the discussion, there was no citation, no theory, nothing about past studies. It was just a description of what the authors found. And the last slide, so you may you may address all of these things that I discussed with you, but the journal may not have space for your paper. As I said, for the next year, I can accept only 30 maximum papers. So what happens? They may reject your paper, and they may compare. The editor may compare your paper, the quality, with other papers that they receive, and would say, although the paper is good, but they would say we don't have enough space here for your paper, because they compare it with other quality of other papers. And they may have published recently a very similar study. They don't want 2 studies very similar in the same journal sometimes. And unfortunately, sometimes there is some editor's publication bias. I have seen, I always do my best to avoid this type of biases. So I have seen some people, they are, for example, biased in terms of they don't accept qualitative papers, they don't accept, let's say, some methods, or they don't accept papers from certain countries, right, certain university. So this may happen, but hopefully not in all journals. And yep, anyway, I did my best to finish in 30 minutes. I think I made it. So this was a summary of a comprehensive course. Actually, it's a comprehensive program on how to publish, and this was one of the courses, and I summarized it. Hope it was helpful. So if you have a paper and you think it's in the scope of my journal, any of these journals, that you can see here, please consider these journals. And if you have any question in the future, you have my email address. Oh my God, you don't have my email. You can search my name, but I just write my email address here for those who may need more information. Yeah, I was preparing the slides yesterday. I forgot to put my email. So this is my email address, saeed.sharif@taylor.edu. Okay, thank you very much. I know it's the lunch time. Hope it was helpful.
Right. As a center of excellence, University of Kelaniya has created a valuable platform for all the academics who works tirelessly towards the creation and the dissemination of knowledge. So Dr. Sahid Palivan Sharif, so it's such an honor for us to have you here in ICBI 2020. And thank you so much for sharing your valuable experiences and for giving your valuable insights for us and in this regard. And we personally believe that it'll be a valuable addition for all of us to nurture our knowledge and insights in this regard. Thanks again.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and we have come to another session of the ICBI 2020 from here onwards. You will be able to join with the rest of the programs of the today's conference. Please kindly pay your attention to the briefing of the rest of the program. For those of you who wish to join with the doctoral colloquium starting from 12:30 p.m. in the main hall can join with it by using the given link in the agenda. Moreover, please be noted that there will be some other parallel sessions attached to the main conference as well, which will be starting from 12:30 p.m. and 3 p.m. today. If you wish to join directly with the sessions of the main conference, please use the relevant links given in the agenda names as session links. You may have a break now onwards. Hope to see you all within the respective tracks. The summary details as follows. Accounting and Finance and Economic Track, Panel A, which is starting from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Accounting, Finance and Economic Track, Panel B, starting from 3 p.m. onwards. Accounting, Finance and Economic Track, Panel C, which is start from 3 p.m. onwards. Education and Learning Track will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Small Business Management Track, Panel A, start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Small Business Management Track, Panel B, will start from 3 p.m. onwards. Marketing, International Business and Strategic Track, Panel A, will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Marketing, International Business and Strategic Track, Panel B, will start from 3 p.m. onwards. Marketing, International Business and Strategic Track, Panel C, will start from 3 p.m. onwards. Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management Track, Panel A, will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management Track, Panel B, will start from 3 p.m. onwards. Operation, Logistic and Supply Chain Management Track, Panel A, will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Technology, Cloud Computing, Big Data Analytics and Information Technology Track, Panel A, will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Technology, Cloud Computing, Big Data Analytics and Information Technology Track, Panel B, will start from 3 p.m. onwards. Tourism and Hospitality Management Track will start from 3 p.m. onwards. The doctoral colloquium, they have several tracks. Accounting, Finance and General Management Track, Session A, will start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Entrepreneurship and Tourism Track, Session B, start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Human Resource Management and Organizational Behavior Track, Session C, start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Marketing and Supply Chain Management Track, Session D, start from 12:30 p.m. onwards. Technology. So make sure all the doctoral colloquium sessions will start around 12:30 p.m. Rest will be some of the starts around at 12:30 and 3 p.m. onwards. The main agenda and the links will share to the chat box by the technical part of this session. So you can refer those and link and join with the respective tracks, and you can join on time. So the main conference will come to end at about 5 p.m. and we'll meet you there with the concluding remarks. Thank you.